Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's February 8th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and really another range day today. I don't have my line up here, but you can see that there's, let me just put a line on there. You can see that there's some really clear resistance right across there, and you really had to move it down really later in the day. It was up a little bit higher earlier, but I'll put it on there just so you can see it. It does make it a little easier later in the day. Um, Not a lot of trades today, relatively quiet day. We just kind of got stuck down here really until 10 o'clock before it started moving, and then it just moved up to the upper side and then got stuck up there. So there's a few trades in here. There's probably some others you could argue for if you really wanted to, but I marked the ones that I felt comfortable with, and I did put a few green ones on here. Generally, you'll probably see more of the green ones in the morning because price action tends to. I mean, I've never gone back and tested this, but it's my opinion based on what I've seen over the years, just watching the ES every morning, that it's easier in the mornings. A few times I've wondered if that was just me, if that was just my personal feelings about it. But I've heard other people say the same thing, that the price action, you don't have as many fake outs, and actually that's not even really the right description because you still get a lot of fake outs, but they're easier to spot for whatever. I guess the price action tends to be more straightforward in the mornings, I guess, than sometimes it is in the afternoon. And that doesn't mean that you can't make money in the afternoon. It doesn't mean that sometimes the afternoon won't be easier than the mornings. But just on a standard daily basis, the morning tends to be easier to me um, than the rest of the day. So it's generally everything's a little bit easier to read, a little bit more straightforward. And I've heard that from other people. So I tend to believe that it's not just my personal opinion. So anyway, let's talk about the trades and wrap up today. I did also want to thank everybody for all the comments on Ray. I figured that some of you would know him, and so for those of you that knew him, why why I tended to like Ray. He was a likable guy, so we'll miss him. But thanks for the comments and so forth. And I know some of y'all will miss him too. But let's move on to the chart lesson and talk about the trades. First trade I saw. Notice we're working down. It looks like this might could be a spiking channel, but if you move it over an equal distance, you can see that little gap right there. That's exactly where you generally, if you see that gap and it's right where you have a trend line, it's probably a good sign that your trend line's in the right place. Why it does that, I don't have any idea. I've racked my brain. I've studied it. I can't come up with it other than the fact that maybe there are thin spots there, and so there's just not enough orders. And people say, oh, there wasn't any volume there or whatever. But why does it always happen at those spots? There's a reason, and I can't put my fingers on it exactly, and it doesn't matter. Just know that when you see that, you probably a lot of times it means you got your trend line in the right place, or you'll see it a lot of times on support and resistance areas too, and it generally just means you got your line in the right place. So I mean, there's things you can read from it, so it's helpful. But anyway, we're working down. Notice we're working down. I wasn't sure if it was a spiking channel or if it was two-tiered, but I felt pretty confident that generally when you get your trend line off these two and you got another high that quick, then that's telling you something. So I said, you got to think, well, maybe this is a two-tiered channel, and that's what it turns out to be. But anyway, we're working down. Notice this is a double top. That's a new high. First entry long, pullback second entry long. Exactly what you'd like to see. A confirmation of that trend line, a couple of tests of it, a big bearish bar. The only problem is it's right into those matching lows. So that's a concern. So for that reason, I made this green. If there would have been plenty of room to scalp out there, I would have said, jump in this one wide open. But it's not, and it's not at the EMA. Generally, your best trades all generate around the EMA too. Not 100%, but generally. So, when you get further and further away, the longer you stay away from the EMA, the higher the odds are it's going to snap back in a minute, and one of these trades is going to fail on you. And I say that all the time, and people miss that. So don't miss that fact. Notice what happens after we've been away all this time down through here. We finally snap back, and it kind of starts over, and then it's not long before it reverses. And look what happens. You get away from it here, it comes back. You get away from it here, it comes back. You get away from it here, it comes back. And so that's pretty normal. So the longer it stays away from that EMA, just remember the higher the odds if you entering away from it, going away from it, the odds are eventually you're going to be wrong and you're going to have a losing trade. So when it comes back like right here, this is when you want to try to look for a setup. So okay, that makes sense hopefully. But yeah, we got that failure here. The only reason that's green is because it's right into these lows. And we did actually get below the original low there. So it's kind of like a breakout pullback short. And you did test this. Let me just show you if you drew your line across here. You can see we came back and tested it once, came back and tested it twice. So it's a little bit of a breakout pullback with a double test. So that's another reason. This could be real close to being blue, but I'm not going to make it blue. It's just too dangerous going short right there. But it's a nice trade and it works well. And then, of course, we do find support here. You do push to a new low, but look what happens. You get a little coming back to the trend line. You get a break, move to a new high. This one really, it actually went higher and turned and went out the other side. And we had fulfilled everything on this little trend coming up. So really, this one should be at least green. I just didn't feel comfortable making it red. But you may not turn that trade down. If this would have ended a really bearish bar, I may not have even had a problem going short below it. But it comes back, gives you a lower high, and then gives you a fairly bearish bar. Even though that didn't close exactly on its low, it's real close. Go short right there. You got enough room to get out. And you actually don't need enough room. It moves on, but you want to generally have enough room to get out, just in case, really. So, but we push down, pull back, and try to go lower a couple more times, and then it reverses. Notice this real bullish bar, and it went up, and it looked like it was going to trap people, and then it turns back up, makes a double bottom, and turns back up again. Well, that's basically a little higher low. So on a failed break lower. So I like entering there. It's a little bit aggressive, but I mean, you could even argue for this to almost be blue because we did get the break and we got a couple of moves to a new low, and you got a nice little possible trap and a double bottom and a failed break lower and all that good stuff. So you might consider that one definitely green. But look at this. This is a perfect reversal pattern. Look how we go higher. We get a little bit of resistance at the EMA, then we push right on through. And so look, we easily get through the EMA, and then we pull back, make a failed second entry short. The EMA holds. Possible trend line here holds. And so go long right there. That is a perfect reversal. And that's an easy trade. And then you get two legs back and another second entry on a bigger pattern. There's actually a second entry here. But I didn't like this one because it's the first break, and we're stacking up here, and you got a bunch of matching bars, and it's just not a very good setup to go long. So it's right into this former high here. Notice how we failed, and then we got back below it, and then we couldn't work above it again. So I didn't feel comfortable. I don't think you want to go long right into that. See if it'll come back and give you another measured leg. And if you notice, there's one leg, and then there's a little two-legged correction, and then a second leg. That's a perfect mid pattern on a larger pattern that you're probably going to see. And also measure that leg and look for at least a measured leg from there. And you see we got a perfect measure, I mean to the tick measured leg. And you got a perfect two-legged pattern right in the middle of it. So that's telling you, that's a good sign. There's one leg down, a correction, a second leg down. But even in the middle, there's two legs on it. So everything is playing out perfect here. And look how bullish that bar is. Go long right there. There's also a possible trap right here. I'm not crazy about it. We just had a break of this channel, but there is this resistance here, and this is a little failed second entry long, and it went out the top first and turned and went out. So you might consider going short there, thinking that, hey, this may be we may have gone into a range. And if you did, it would have worked. But again, I think you're better off to sit tight, and then you're able to catch this long. And you don't know that this long is going to take off like that, but it does. And look what happens when it breaks. Look at the gap right there. If you put that line right across that resistance, look at that gap. It jumped that resistance area again. It's very common to see that, and that tells you something. And notice how when we break through, we come back and test it before we go higher. I would have liked to seen a second entry here, because notice that new high pullback. That's the first entry. Not even a very good signal bar. We didn't get a whole lot of resistance there at the EMA, so that one was, you just can't go long there. You got to watch that one. But notice that you've got a break now, and you got one leg up and a second leg up, and we found resistance there. So there's a good chance you may see a correction now. And you got that high, first entry long, pull back second entry long, so you get a failed second entry long, you get a double test of this high, you get a fairly bearish bar, you're a little bit away from the EMA. I like going short there. And if you might get lucky, this might be the high of the day, or a major high of the day, because the high of the day is a little bit higher than that. But you still might catch the afternoon or mid-morning high of the day and go lower. And so those are a lot of times worth trying to get those. And notice we get two legs down, and it bounces right here. But you got that trend line working down. This is the first break. I'm probably going to wait and see if we get a retest of the low or something else. And of course, we get another trap right here, and this looks a little like we had over here. And it turns back down and then gives you a chance to get in. And this is a trap. That's a fairly bullish bar, so going long there, you might get trapped on that. There's a lot of congestion there. But if you saw the trap, you could take it. But you're better off to, the key here is the long right here. But this was looking like a range day, so really at this point, I thought we would go lower than this. I drew this line right here and drug it down, and it did bounce right there. So, but when it didn't bounce here the next time, I wasn't 100% sure that we were going to go higher again. I really thought we may go on down and test the lows, but now you got a double test of this level on a big bullish bar, so just go long there. And that you could have ridden that all the way up till the close, basically, if you wanted to, at least back up to the upper side of the channel. And if you'd exited right below that, you'd get out within a tick or two of the high. So, yeah, there were some pretty good trades in here. You would have gotten some runners off a couple of these too. But nothing crazy. I mean, nothing real big, no real big runners today or anything like that. So just kind of an average range type day. So, but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up for today. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.